Hello and welcome to UNSPUN Live, the Herald's politics podcast. My name is Andrew Learmonth. I'm the political editor of the Herald, and I'm joined today by Deputy Political Editor Rebecca McCurdy. And we were both in Paisley on Friday for Scottish Labour's conference, which was interesting, low-key. What did you make of it? What did you make of the mood there?
Very low-key. I thought the mood was interesting. So it came right off the back of the Gorton and Denton by-election. It was...
Where Labour lost, just in case you haven't seen that. Labour lost, yeah.
It was quite sombre, I thought. Spoke to a couple of candidates for the Holyrood election. They were really open about how worried they were. It was a much smaller scale conference. Obviously, Keir Starmer is not friends with Anas anymore. So he was out, he was snubbed. And yeah, that was kind of the mood. That there was definitely a kind of elephant in the room, I thought. I don't know, what did you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. And it was interesting, Keir Starmer not being there. And when you talk to Scottish Labour people, they were like, oh, well, he was never going to come. This was always just about Anas. But, you know, actually, Keir Starmer, it's weird for the leader of the party, UK party, to not be the Scottish party. I was talking to some Scottish Tories about this, and they were like, well, do you remember that Douglas Ross and Boris Johnson absolutely hated each other, but we still managed to get them in the same room in Aberdeen at the same time. So odd that Keir Starmer wasn't there, but also just that quirk of timing, you know, the conference itself starting 5 hours after the humiliating by-election defeat in Manchester. It was interesting as well because there was a bit of a sort of weird mixture of emotions from people in the Scottish Labour that I spoke to on the day. There was this feeling of, because obviously Anas Sarwar a few weeks back has stood up and said, you know, Keir Starmer should go. You need to get rid of this distraction in number 10, the chaos in number 10. And he was very lonely when he did that. All these people he expected to follow him, you know, over the trenches didn't. And certainly there was a number of Scottish Labour MPs who were very critical of him, you know, accused him of being treachery and being a traitor and all that sort of stuff. And so I think there was a sense among some of those in the Scottish Labour leaders' camp who felt that he had been vindicated a little bit by the result in the by-election. But there was also another sense of frustration about some of the Manchester Labour. One contact compared it to how Scottish Labour were in 2015, 2014. You know, or not even Scottish Labour, but Glasgow Labour particularly, this idea that they hadn't really had to campaign before the 2015 election in Scotland. And it was the same in Manchester, this feeling that people in Manchester Labour hadn't really had to campaign because Gorton and Denton was their sixth safest seat. And so perhaps they didn't necessarily campaign as well as they could have done. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting speaking to some of the MPs. Like you say, there was only two, Brian Leishman and Ewan Steinbank, that has backed Anas Sarwar and said that Keir Starmer should go. And then I had kind of made it my mission to speak to as many Labour MPs as possible who were at conference, which I don't know about you, but I found that really difficult to actually find them. A lot of the time they were in hiding, maybe. And the ones that I did speak to were it was very short answers, or I do support Keir Starmer, or, you know, or like it was disappointing in reference to the by-election, but they wouldn't stop to actually speak about it. And I think it's kind of, perhaps that's because obviously their jobs aren't in any immediate risk. You know, they've got until 2029 until they have to actually contest their seats. Barring any sort of catastrophe, of course.
I was surprised by how few MPs were there. There's quite a lot of MPs who were very notable by their absence, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, I spoke to Gordon McKee, and then, so he was with a couple of the other Glasgow ones. But yeah, I mean, did you see Joanna Baxter? Obviously, it was her constituency.
Joanna Baxter was there, yeah.
Yeah, well, she was there. And then, but there wasn't that many. I don't think most, I'd say probably about 15%, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Zubair Ahmed, who was Glasgow South Side, and John Grady. It's not Glasgow South Side. Glasgow South Side is the Holyrood seat. I think it's Glasgow South West. John Grady. There's a couple of others, but yeah, really, really not a massive attendance, which you would expect at a conference, this big pre-election conference. And then the big I mean, the only really notable event of the day, I suppose, was because there wasn't even that many fringe events or anything like that.
I think there was 2 a.m, 2 in the afternoon, something like that.
So the only really big event of the day was Anas Sarwar's speech. We were both in the hall for that. What did you take away from that?
So it's quite interesting. I thought it was quite an angry speech from Anas Sarwar. He said this line that was kind of all over the papers. Hold your nose and vote for Labour. Kind of accepting that Labour's not popular, but he's trying to bring it back to this argument that we're better than the SNP and we're better than Reform. But I just feel like I got a sense of, like, in the huddle that he did with journalists after it, I got a sense that he kind of knew that the controversy surrounding Keir Starmer's premiership had kind of really damaged him. You got a sense that, because I think he said at one point, this is the only chance to elect me as First Minister, and then kind of shifted it to say, well, actually it's the best chance. But he did kind of make that confession that this might be the only chance, suggesting that maybe he has to go if this fails. And I think he was asked that, and he obviously said, I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals, but I mean, I think he does know that his job is at risk here.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
It is a crucial couple of weeks.
Yeah, if he fails or falls short or does not do as well as expected, then I think he would have to go. I mean, the line was, it was also just, this is our best chance, perhaps our only chance to end SNP rule. So, I mean, I don't know if he's suggesting the SNP are going to be in government forever unless he becomes the next First Minister.
But it was interesting. And there was one point in his speech where he did get really angry when trying to bring it back to issues like the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital scandal. But also he never mentioned Keir Starmer or the UK government once in his speech, which is a total shift from anything. Normally he's like in complete step with Keir Starmer, so it's proper shift. They've even kind of moved to, of course, the blue saltire branding as well. It's like, maybe that's why a lot of MPs kind of weren't there as well. Like, there is this total, almost like split between the two.
It's going to be fascinating to see how many Labour candidates have pictures of Keir Starmer on their leaflets to this election. Probably not as many as the SNP candidates will have.
Well, I went to this Meet the Candidates fringe,
and they were
asked about the by-election, and specifically asked about, what do you think of Keir Starmer's leadership? Interestingly, I think all 4 of the candidates had previously worked or campaigned for an MP who was currently there. So you had Kieran Higgins. So he obviously was a special advisor for Ian Murray. He was very coy about criticising Keir Starmer, very, very unwilling to do that. But all the other ones were like, actually, this is coming up on the doorstep and we need to do something about it. And then I had spoken to Monica Lennon, Scottish Labour MSP, who's standing in the Blantyre and Rutherglen constituency, I think. And she was like, I'm just completely telling voters that we are not connected. I have no connection to Keir Starmer. I don't support anything he does. And trying to just completely shut down any conversation about the UK government. So it's very interesting.
It is, isn't it? It is. So right before Anas stood up to speak, we had this sort of shock poll from the Scottish election study, which was really pretty grim for Labour, because it suggested that they were going to come fourth in the Holyrood election. So behind the SNP, who had become the largest party, we think with about 57 seats. Then there was Reform, who had 22 seats. Is that right? And then it was the Greens on 18 seats. 16 seats. And then Labour were on 15 seats. So, I mean, that would be a dire result for Scottish Labour. But what's really fascinating, again, and really interesting from speaking to people at the Scottish Labour conference, is they're still quite confident.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of it comes back to the Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election, where everyone counted Labour out, myself included. Happy to confess.
Well, totally. And to be fair, Labour people counted themselves out of that one as well.
But what they did that was so successful was they had people on the ground. And I've been trying to get a sense of, is that being replicated across Holyrood constituencies? A lot say it is, but you get the sense in some areas that maybe they need to up their ante a wee bit. But I think that's where the confidence does come from, the fact that they obviously have surprised people before, and they're not willing to count themselves out again.
So we saw some of this over the weekend. The party shared some of their election strategy for the May the 7th vote, and the idea is that you treat it like a series of mini by-elections almost, rather than as one big thing. So again, this sort of ties into some of the frustration the Scottish Party felt with the Gorton and Denton by-election. So Labour have this thing called Get Out to Vote. All parties will have something similar. And this is their election day strategy, their election day machine. That's you basically spend 4 or 5 weeks before the election going around people's doors, knocking and saying, are you going to vote for Labour? And then you categorise them. So if they say, yes, I'm definitely 100% going to vote for Labour, that's your hero voter. If you go, maybe I'll vote for maybe Labour even, that's a sort of a possibility. And go, no, I'm definitely voting for Nigel Farage and Reform. That's, no chance. And then what Labour have traditionally always been quite good at, particularly since, we saw that with the Hamilton Larkhall Stonehouse by-election, is finding those people who are, it's basically your get to vote strategy is making sure you're nudging those people towards the polling station on election day. And Labour have been very good at that. You're not talking big numbers here. You're talking about a few thousand, and you get those people who are thinking about it. You sort of go and sort of give them one last minute nudges, or you sort of get in touch with them by the phone, or you knock on their door, or then you have those hero voters, so you make sure they get out, and you just don't waste time going after those sort of the people who are definitely not going to vote for you, or who are like soft maybes, and so one Labour source was telling me was that in Gorton and Denton, they had identified 43,000 people to knock up on election day. And that's way too many. That's pretty much like, more than 50% of the constituency. Yeah. It should be like, not even like 5,000 or 6,000. It's just people, could make the difference if you get them to the polling station.
Definitely will vote.
Yeah. And so we saw that in the Hamilton Larkhall Stonehouse by-election. Labour were just really good at getting people to the polling station. And I remember speaking to one SNP activist who sort of compared and moaned about the comparison between their ground operation and the Labour's, because they said Labour were going out and they got iPads when they're knocking on doors, and they were going out with like a bit of paper on a clipboard and stuff like that. So I think that is one of the great unknowns of the election campaign, is how much of a difference Labour's ground operation will make. But saying that, they are still really, really, really far behind the polls.
Yeah.
So what's coming up this week? Because I suppose the other big unknown, actually, is reform.
Yes, so we actually still don't have any candidates, or
no candidates.
We finally have a leader, of course, in Scotland. But so we think maybe we should hopefully get some candidates.
Well, we were told by the party at the start of March we should get a list. We'll find out who their candidates are. So there's perhaps some suggestion that they're keeping this on download just now, just because less time their candidates are public, the less time people like you and me have to scrutinise them and, just do the basic Googling that Reform have been pretty atrocious at when it comes to candidates in the past. So we expect maybe that this week as well, don't we? Yeah.
I don't think we're expecting a manifesto of any kind for a long time yet, though.
No.
And they've got a conference coming up in Scotland, we're hoping.
We think possibly towards the end of the month. So but obviously we'll have SNP conference in between then. But I think at the time of recording this podcast, there are now 66 days until the election. So we're getting there.
We're well underway.
Yeah. And obviously for all your election news and coverage of Scottish politics, please keep listening to UNSPUN. You can get us wherever you find your podcast. Please subscribe, leave a comment if you want to get in touch with us. politics@theherald.co.uk. Thanks very much. Bye.